Jay Haynes for the Film Sensei YouTube channel. Today in this video, I am going to recreate the Andrew Kramer solar atmosphere tutorial, which was based on the tutorial by Axel Wilkinson and Simon Jones called Recreating the Video Copilot Star in HitFilm, which of course was originally based on the solar atmosphere tutorial by Andrew Kramer. So this will be a three-part tutorial, and today we will create the first part, which is the solar map or the star map that will be used to create the actual solar atmosphere or the star look. So we're going to start by creating a new composite shot, and I want it to be 10 seconds long, and I want it to be called the sun, and I'm going to use the same terminology that was used in the other tutorials. Click OK, and I want to begin by creating a new plane. It needs to be black, and it's going to be 1080 by 1920, and I'm just going to call it black 1080 because there will be some other black planes that I'm creating that are different sizes. And I will click OK. And this plane, I will then use my F2 key and rename background. And it will be the background of the shot, which will be the stars. But that's what I will do later in another tutorial. So that background plane I'm basically done with for now. Now I'm going to create a new plane. And this plane is going to be also black, but it is going to be bigger. It is going to be 1920 by 3840. So I'm just going to change the width to 3840 and the height to 1920. It is still black, and I'm going to click OK. And now if I use my mouse wheel to scroll out, you can see it's quite a bit larger than my actual frame, and that's okay because I'm going to need that to have a lot of fine detail. I am going to go ahead and rename it, so I'm going to hit my F2 key, and I'm going to call this Star Map. Then, after hitting Enter, I'm going to make it into its own composite shot where I have access to the entire plane. So I'm going to right-click on this and say Make into a composite shot, and I'm going to take the composite shot properties from the selected layer. So when I click OK and it creates the composite shot, you can see that the composite shot itself is 3840 by 1920, and you can see that the star map plane is actually the entire size of the composite shot. So now what's going to happen is I'm going to search for and find the fractal noise effect. And this is sort of the secret sauce of this entire effect or this entire tutorial. I'm going to start, and actually I'm going to double click on this so that it brings it up under the Controls tab. And I'm going to start by changing the type. Right now it is clouds, but it looks much better if you use a swirl type. Under Appearance, dial that open. We're going to change a few things. We're going to take the offset down, and this can be sort of to taste, but I'm going to use the exact numbers that Axel used, which is negative 0.46. And then you want to bring the exposure up to sort of reintroduce the brighter parts. And he used the exact number of 1.0. Also, I'm going to, under the subsettings, change the influence. I'm going to bring that up a bit. You can see that as I do that, it makes it look more wispy. If I go too far, then it ends up looking too grainy. So the number that he used was 77. I will go ahead and use that. Also, we're going to bring the scale down a little bit, and he used a scale of 30 in his tutorial. Now, if I open up and I find the seed property, I'm going to go ahead and keyframe the seed over the 10 seconds. So I will keyframe here on frame 0, and then I will go to the end of the timeline. And since it's 10 seconds, we're going to go 10 as the seed. So that way it changes from 0 to 10 over the time. And you can see how it's sort of undulating and changing as it goes on. One of the big things that he did was he also checked the center subscale or enabled it, and this makes it kind of appear to fade in from one seed to the next as it goes, right? And this really adds a nice look to the star effect. Now that we've done all that, we're going to go ahead and duplicate that fractal noise so that we have a second one which will add more to the star. If I open up this fractal noise, I'm going to make a few changes, starting with the appearance. The offset, I'm going to drop down a little bit, and the number that was used is negative 0.5. The exposure gets kicked up, and the number that was used was 2.6. Again, these are to taste. You can change those all you want. And then also the seed for that, he changed. He went from 1, instead of from 0 to 10, he went from 1 to 11, just to make it look a little bit different. Now, you can see that you can only see that second fractal noise. That's because the blend mode has been set to none, but if we go ahead and make a blend mode of screen, then you can see the fractal noise above it as well. So now I have two different fractal noises doing different things. And what we want to do is add in some highlights to really blow out parts, making it look like lava is firing off of the top of the star there. So what I'm going to do, or not the top, but the surface of the star, is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the fractal noise one more time. And this time I'm really going to fire these out. So the offset is going to come down just a little bit more, negative 0.6, but the exposure is really going to kick up, like around 9.0 or so. So now you can really see these highlights in here. Okay. Also, making a few other changes, we're going to go ahead and just to make the highlights show up a little bit more under the subsettings, we're going to take the influence down to 69%. You can see how that brightens that up a bit if I toggle that on and off. And also, just to create a little bit of more randomness, Axel rotated it 271 degrees. And so now we have these sort of bright spots appearing in and out of the fractal as it's moving. So this is the final star map that we're using. So we go back into our sun composite shot, and you can see, remember, it's much bigger than the entire composite shot, but that looks very nice. And what we're going to do is find our new effect, which is going to be the sphere effect, and we're going to drop it onto the star map. And if I open up the properties there, the radius I'm going to make about 550. So it's big enough, that it can be seen easily. And you can see how that is undulating and changing. And that looks very, very cool. Okay, so there is that. What we want to do is we want to create a single point that we can use to control everything with. And so I'm going to click on New Layer, New Point, and I'm going to rename that point Control. That way I know what it is. Okay. I'm going to make it 3D, and this will automatically add a camera. If in your version of HitFilm, a camera isn't automatically added, then what will happen is HitFilm will ask you, hey, do you want to add this camera? And your answer will always be yes, which is why I have just set it to say, yeah, don't even ask me, just add the camera. Okay, so now what needs to happen is I need to add the little glow effects around the edges. So that it looks like the star is glowing. And I am going to do this the way that it was done in the original tutorial. However, with the advancing of HitFilm, the original tutorial was done in HitFilm 2 Ultimate. In HitFilm Express version 12, we have a lot of other opportunities to do some things, and maybe in the future I will explore some of those in a different video. But for today, I'm going to go ahead and just do the exact same thing that Axel did in his tutorial, which of course was based on Andrew Kramer's idea, and he did a very similar thing in his. I'm going to go ahead and create a new plane, and this time the plane needs to be white. So I'm going to make it a white plane, and I'm going to call this plane white, but it's going to be 2048 pixels square. So I'm going to go ahead and 2048 pixels by 2048 pixels, and clicking OK. Now at this point, if you go back to the media bin, you can see that we're starting to clutter it up with a bunch of planes. So just to keep things neat and tidy, I'm going to create a new folder in the media bin, and I'm going to rename that folder Planes. And then I'm going to, using my mouse and left clicking with the control held down, I can grab multiple items, and I'm going to drag those multiple planes into the planes folder. That way I know where they're at and I have access to them, and I will be using some of those again, but they're not all cluttering up my media bin. Okay. All right. So now back in the controls tab, you can see that I have the plane. And what I'm going to do is drag this down below the star map. And I'm going to rename it using the F2 key, Glow. Now what I want to do is I want to draw a circular mask under the glow plane that basically is the exact same size as the star map sphere. In other words, it's about 550 pixels across. So to do that, I'm going to use an elliptical mask tool, and I'm going to click on that. I'm going to come in really close, about 800%, as close as I can get. And I basically want to center my mouse as centered as it can be. Now, if you look down here in the lower right-hand corner, you have the X and Y coordinates for my mouse. If in your version of HitFilm, you don't have those numbers down there, then what you do is you come up to File and Options, and under Display, you can actually check Show Mouse Coordinates here. And I believe that that's not normally checked on, but I like to see the mouse coordinates. So you enable that, and then you'll be able to see those. From there, you don't have to be perfectly 0, 0, but we want to be pretty darn close. And I think that's pretty darn close. I'm going to click and drag on this. Now it's making an elliptical mask, but if I hold down the Alt key and the Shift key at the same time in Windows, it would be Command and Shift in Mac, then you have a perfect circle around the center of where you clicked. Drag this out big enough, let it go. Now I can go ahead and come back out to a scale to fit, and you can see the mask, how far I dragged it out. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the selection tool and just grab a corner and drag it out. And now you can see there is the mask, and I'm just going to make it about exactly as big as the, maybe just a little bit smaller, but I want it to be exactly as big as the sphere itself. Whoops, I did not mean to move that, so I'm going to Control Z to undo that. I slightly moved the star map there. Okay, back in the glow plane, now we're going to create the glow itself. And to do that, I'm going to use a blur effect. And I'm going to drag this blur effect onto the glow plane itself. And you can see it's just a little bit of a blur there. If I open this up and I expand the radius a little bit, then it will have a bigger glow. And the exact number that actually used was 56. But again, you can do that to taste, no problem. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is duplicate that glow plane. So I'm going to right click and say duplicate. I can also use the hotkey Control D. The second glow plane, I'm going to change the blur radius to be a little bit bigger, and it's going to be 150 pixels. And then I'm going to duplicate it one more time, and I'm going to, again, change the blur radius a little bit more bigger to 225 pixels. So now you can see I have a triple glow effect that is behind the star, and it is has this nice radial gradient coming out from it. Looks very lovely. I'm going to grab all three of those by using my Shift key to highlight that, and I'm going to parent those to the 3D control point that I have right here. Also, in the star map, I'm going to open up the sphere effect, and under position of the sphere effect, transform from the control point. So this way, if I highlight the control point and I move the control point, it will actually move everything, including the star. And I'm just going to go ahead and drag it down here a little bit like this. Okay. All right. Now, one more thing that I'm going to do, and then we'll call it for this tutorial. And then next week, I will release another one. And if, of course, you're watching this in the future, you'll be able to see that one right away. If you're watching it brand new, then you'll have to wait until next week to part 2. But what I'm going to do is I need to the glow right now is only behind the star, and I want it to come in front of the star. Now, here's the deal. If I go to the star map, under the Controls tab, under the sphere, what Axel did in HitFilm 2 Ultimate was he opened up the environment map, and he said, let's set that to one of the glow layers. And guess what? I do that, and nothing happens. And honestly, I don't know why, because it worked in his tutorial, and it definitely works in HitFilm 2 Ultimate. I tried it, and it absolutely has an effect. However, there is no effect, and I tried using the environmental layer, and I tried doing all this stuff, and nothing worked. So I said, well, if that isn't working, I don't know why. I'm going to have to do something else. So what I did was I went in and used a light wrap effect instead. And this is going to get us the same results. So light wrap effect, I'm going to drag this on under the sphere effect, and I am going to source one of the glow layers. And now you can see we have a little bit of a light wrap, and I'm just going to up this to about 200. And now you can see I have a lot of light wrap, okay? But I wasn't satisfied. I wanted a little bit more of a glow. This is a star, so I went ahead and duplicated that a second time. And now I have this very lovely bright wrapping of the light all around, so the glow is in front and behind of the star. And so that is the end of this part of the tutorial. Next week, we will add the solar flares that are coming off, and then we will wrap it up by adding in the rest of the glows, the color grading, and the other items that we wanted to sort of tie it all together. So in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you like this kind of thing, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks for watching.